remember Dean having one, but he was changing cars so often that,
Hard to keep
Well, here, let
tabs.
me go move my car.
Hard to keep tabs.
Audi, what's that other
Well, he had an
one?
Audi and it was in a SUV style, and then he had another one like the same thing in a different color, and then he had one that was a sedan.
I have an Indy, does that count?
Sure.
He had
Audis
a
don't
what?
impress me. The Indies do.
Okay. He's impressed.
Well, that's quite the outfit.
And she's having another boy? Pink girl? That'll be 2 boys and 2 girls.
Boy, girl, boy, girl. I mean, gosh, not very many of us could do that.
No.
Who's
Well,
this?
Moscow.
Moscow.
Jenny did. She had a boy and a girl and a boy and a girl, and then she had the other boy. And she ain't gonna have no girl. And Stacy wanted a boy, and she had another girl. But Joel's brother's new wife is going to have a boy in April. So that'll take some of the shine off of Mr. Jackson.
Joel's brother's new wife.
Yeah. He's been married about 2 years now. He was divorced for 6. You know, his first wife left when he bought that house that Joel and Stacy lived in. Allred. Rita Allred lived across the street. I ran around. I've got a picture somewhere of Rita and I.
And you were talking about being at the telephone earlier,
Yeah.
and that was after you graduated?
Mm-hmm. And they had girls on base that were the base phones. But Shorty Maryhugh and his wife Marie ran the telephone office, and she was the operator. And for for the people in town. And until the houses were done, there wasn't any real telephones out there until they started building those houses, and other people moved in and had the telephone. There's very few of them, so she was the only telephone operator, and she'd close the switchboard down at night.
I just remember the party line we had.
We didn't have a party line.
Yes, we did.
We did?
When we
We
first
sure?
got out there, yeah.
I thought
Was
Dad
that-
always had a,
He did right after, we didn't have it for too long.
I
But we
know I
did.
can remember when you'd pick up the phone and somebody was talking on it, and you'd have to hang up and wait till they
Got off.
got off. Yeah, we had a party line.
That
for a
was
while.
all they had out there at first, Fred, or Lynn.
so Fred, you
remember our old
got
phone
out to
number.
Wendover.
Well, he didn't go out there to stay when he went out with Mother. They were just out there for,
Well, you said
Okay.
you stayed in the trailer.
Uh-huh. And it was down by, what was the guy's name? Oh, that lived in Nevada. He was Dad's,
Bob Scobie.
Bob Scobie, yeah. We were,
They were down, the trailers were down in
we
there.
were still on the Utah side, but
Yeah.
just over the hill. We used to scramble over that rock hill, and Bob Scobie, and then of course the famous lady that was out there, She lived in a shack on the Nevada side.
Which one, Wendover Mary?
I can't remember what we called her.
A to J?
A to J. A to J.
That doesn't ring a bell with me, but
Well, Wendover Mary was out there, but I think she always lived over on the Utah side.
No, she had a little shack behind the state line.
yeah.
Did she? Well, then
Yeah.
it was Mary.
Yeah, she had a little shack behind the state line.
She never had any teeth.
Well, but she was attractive.
The reason she didn't have
Come
teeth is
on.
she had a cleft lip.
She just didn't wear her teeth. She
Well-
had false teeth.
Because she had a cleft palate.
Cleft palate people even had teeth. I know, I went to school with one.
You're right. But it depends on how bad the separation is by the time it gets down to the gum line.
Yeah, Wayne's little grandson doesn't have,
He doesn't have teeth?
not
No.
on one part of his,
And not only that, but Elder Lublin didn't have any teeth. Except for his false teeth.
Well, they can do something about Wayne's little grandson, can't they?
he's had how many surgeries?
Whose child is it?
Neil's.
He has had some problems, hasn't he?
And so Dad went out from Fort
Fort Douglas.
Douglas.
Fort Douglas.
He was hired to go to work as a fireman at Fort Douglas. And he went to work
When
there.
was that year? You know.
That was in early 41, wasn't it? Yeah.
I don't know.
He'd only been out there a couple of months when Ralph Green wrote him. In fact, letters in there, in that book that Katie made for Mother, he wrote Dad a letter and said that they were looking for an assistant fire chief for out there and for Dad to go take the test for it. And he couldn't take it at Fort Douglas. He had to go to Hillfield to take it, because Hillfield was over Wendover, not Fort Douglas. And Dad took it.
And said he was 5'7". I remember him telling me that.
He cheated.
He lied.
Just stretched it a
Stretched.
little.
About 4 inches.
But anyway, he took the test and passed it. And then they sent him out to Wendover as an assistant chief. And he no sooner got out there than they fired Ralph Green and put Dad in as fire chief.
Well, I can remember Dad saying that the first, that he'd only been there a couple of days when they had their first crash, and that the guy that was the fire chief picked up one of those old flight caps, you know, that the pilots wore, picked it up off the salt, and the guy's head was still in it. And he said he just threw up and threw up and threw up, and Dad made it sound like he just couldn't take it, so he left.
No, he was fired. He was
Well.
let go.
Have you ever heard Dad say anything bad about anybody?
No,
So why would he say he was fired? He's going to make an excuse for the guy.
okay, he made an excuse for the guy, but they let him go. I don't remember the story about the head and the hat, but I probably wasn't out there either.
Well, I was definitely not out there, plus I wasn't old enough to remember it. All I can remember is Dad talking about it.
Anyway, he wasn't out there very long as an assistant chief when he was made the chief. And Howard Hellawell came out there as the assistant chief.
And who was Wadsworth? Was that the engineer that was over Dad?
He was the engineer that should have been over Dad, but Major DeBerry, Fred DeBerry, said that, what was Wadsworth's name?
Daryl.
Darrell Wadsworth didn't have enough brains to blow his own nose.
And so he did talk about that.
No, it was Fred
No,
DeBerry.
but even Dad, I can remember Dad complaining about engineers.
Yeah.
Oh, well, the only thing Daryl knew how to do was go hide in his office and read cowboy stories.
And tell his wife who was going to get fired and who wasn't. And half the time he didn't tell the truth. And he really was he was a,
So when did
Very
John
useless.
Palmer get out there?
oh, John Palmer didn't come out until after the GIs were all gone.
He didn't come out until late
Towards the end,
40s, early
yeah.
50s, did he?
50s, I'd say.
Well, in one of these,
Because there were no more military men that were firemen when John Palmer got out.
well, that's what I thought. That part I could remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to talk like he was out there when the 509th was out there, and
He
he was
wasn't.
overhearing a conversation, and the next day the guy was gone. And all this.
Alvin told that. They were out working in on the plane, wiring the plane to drop the bomb, and they had it pulled over, the
The
hole
pit,
where.
yeah.
And they were sitting in the pit, and they took a coffee break. And this kid was sitting there reading a funny book. What was it?
Buck Rogers.
Buck Rogers. I thought there was a Gordon name in there, but anyway.
Oh, maybe it was Flash. No, not
Flash Gordon.
No,
Yeah, there was Flash Gordon.
I know, but he wasn't the space guy. Buck Rogers was the space guy.
Well, anyway, he was sitting there reading this funny book, and he started to laugh. And he says, "Hey guys, I know what we're building," because nobody was supposed to know exactly what they were doing out
Yeah.
there. And somebody says, "Oh yeah, what?" And he says, "We're building an atom bomb." And they all laughed and thought it was funny. But the next day, he was transferred. Kid was transferred to Alaska, no less.
Yeah, I can remember Alvin telling me that story.
Yeah.
That the guy had come up with a funny book.
And he was just one of the kids, kind of the gophers,
Yeah.
Alvin was down there doing the wiring. In fact, they took Al up to 10,000 feet, put a harness on him off of a parachute, and hung him out in the bomb bay to check to see if the wiring was going to hold up when they opened the doors. But this was just one of the kids that didn't have really any background in the technical things that were going on, and he's the one that told them what they were building.
Wasn't there a guy named Roy Rose that was one of
Yes,
Dad's assistants?
he was one of the first civilian assistants to come out there.
And
Don Dean,
Don Dean, he was out there in
As a
the
fireman.
military
yeah.
and then
Came
stayed
back
over
and-
as a civilian.
Did we ever tell you about Don Diane
Yeah,
and telling?
he saw Dad.
No, he said
Fred.
Fred had come to get him.
Oh, yeah.
But he thought our dad was the greatest.
And what was his wife's name?
Lawana.
Lawana. Is she still alive?
Uh-huh.
That is spelled military.
Military.
Okay, back to my chronology. So you went out with Mom, and you did go to school in Wendover, the 7th grade. Did you go the 8th grade?
Mm-hmm.
You went as far as the 9th grade out there, didn't you?
No.
No,
just the
because you
8th?
came back to Lewis, your night.
Yeah, I went back and stayed with Aunt Ish and went to school in Ogden, the 9th grade.
And then you went to Wendover, or to Grantsville.
Grantsville.
I never got to go to Grantsville.
So you actually were away from home school for 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I left in the 9th grade.
And that's what, Dad was offered a job at Edwards Air Force Base as the fire chief. And he told them no. And they asked him why, and he says, because I don't want somebody else having to send a child away to go to school for 4 years.
Do you know, I know the fire chief's son that took that job when Dad turned it down.
You did?
Yep.
I didn't know he had a son.
He was a CES teacher.
Well, Dad turned it down, and that was why.
Okay. Then, so most of your experience in Grantsville or in Wendover was summer experience.
Yeah. Well, the 7th and 8th grade, it was
Yeah, that's
Quite.
true.
David Ecton and Ted Stevens. We used to raise.
And you tried to talk Luana out of marrying Dawn because she was only 16.
I don't remember that. I never meddled in people who they wanted to marry.
Ask her.
Luana Dean?
Yeah.
Hmm.
It wasn't you weren't telling her not to marry Dawn in particular. You just kept telling her she was too young to get married.
Whoops, that's Paul.
Now you went to BYU 1 year
Hello?
Uh-huh.
and then up to Utah
Hi,
State
sweetheart.
and then to California in the
No
Army.
problem.
I went up to Utah State just till the
Okay.
first quarter, and then I ran out of money. And then
Uh-huh.
I went to Twilla Ordnance to work.
I thought you were going to school again when you and Kerma, before
Okay.
you and
We
Kerma got
have
married.
tithing settlement at 7:30.
Mhm.
Can we do it early enough to be back?
Uh,
Okay, let me talk to Dad now.
so what year did you graduate from Grantsville?
49.
Oh, okay.
And Kerma graduated in 51.
And she went to
Okay,
the
well,
University
let me
of
talk
Youth
to him.
for
We're
a
up at Aunt
while,
Jean's.
didn't she?
She went a whole year.
Uncle Fred and Aunt Jean are
She went in there while I
talking
was
Wendover.
working
Uncle
at Twilla
Fred's
Ordnance.
got a camcorder here, and they're getting some dates and events down on it. I will. And I
Were
I
you
know
working
we've got
at
our tithing
Todd when you
settlement
got married to
7:30
Kermit?
tomorrow.
No, he was going in the Army.
That's when they
Sounds
finally took
wonderful
me
to
in
me.
the Army.
How
So I
early
was
is Carol
drafted and I
unavailable?
went to Fort Ord.
How
Well,
early
I
is
married
Carol
Kermit just
unavailable
before we went in
tomorrow?
the Army.
What year did you get drafted? Well, the same year you got married.
52.
Okay. All right.
But let's get you guys down. I can always get my stuff down.
Okay,
I
I want
want-
to see your tree.
I came down to
Thank
get
you.
your,
Okay. I'll tell them hi and I'll call
Well,
you back.
this is helping me because,
All right. Bye.
you know, I could have sworn up and down that
Hi from
we
Paul.
were out there in 1942, but I do remember moving into 110. I can remember,
That was where they first moved.
yeah. And I can remember we were one of the only houses on that whole row that had a telephone, and that's the way I used to find the house when I'd go down to Peterson's.
Is
Mother
the
would let me
telephone
go
alive?
down to Peterson's for penny candy, and then I'd count the rows back, and then I'd come down the alleyway and find the telephone line and find the house.
Well, by then, there was quite a few of them there. The colonel had an off-base telephone. But they brought girls out and they had a dormitory where they lived that ran the phone, was the telephone operators on base, and they were single girls. And they could date